on future streets. I'm going to try and end the hand as quickly as possible, either by taking a very aggressive route, either betting or raising, or I'm just going to go ahead and try to put in no money, realize that my raise with pre-flop with threes was profitable in the first place, and just try to give up from there. So I just check. He checks. Well, 8 doesn't really change anything. I could bet to protect my hand, but usually when my opponent checks, it's more of an indication that he's got a hand with marginal showdown value rather than one that has absolutely no showdown value. So, for example, if my opponent here had like King Jack, he could just go ahead and bet the flop and just take it down and be totally happy with that. So when he checks back the flop, it's usually that he has some kind of pair here. He might have like pocket fours, pocket deuces, pocket fives, something that just doesn't really want to put in money against me. He might have a 6, he might have an 8. A lot of the hands that he's worried about facing a check raise with, we'll just go ahead and check. He probably bets pocket 9s, a 10 and above. I mean, if I was him, I'd just go ahead and bet my 8 just to protect my hand. I don't think that without a significant read that he's going to go into check raise. And here he just goes ahead and pots the turn. He could be doing this with some kind of bluff, realizing that I've given up the pot. If he is doing this as a bluff, again, I think that it's really terrible. Earlier we talked about you should only be betting enough to accomplish what your goal is. If he's trying to get me to go ahead and fold absolute air here, he could bet like 60 cents, 70 cents, and if I had any kind of hand like the one I have, or like ace jack, I would just go ahead and fold all of those hands for a relatively small bet. I'm not going to try and get suspicious out of position. When I'm going to get suspicious, it's going to be in position, where I always threaten to do really, really nasty things to my opponent if he continues against me. So 3s, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. I think that when he just pots the turn, it's less likely that he has a bluff than he has an 8, or 8, or maybe a slow played full house that's just impatient. It's just like, oh, I have a strong hand, I need to build the pot, blah blah blah. That's how all my opponents talk when I'm playing against them. They all sound like I don't know, John McCain. Is that how he sounds? I don't even know. On table 3, Mama Bellos goes ahead and raises, and I have aces, so I put in zirires. On table 4, I come into the situation that I was on table 1. A relative unknown goes ahead and re-raises me on the button. So this is something that you should notice has happened to me quite a bit. I've raised the button and one of the blinds has re-raised me. This is going to happen all the time. Until I have a good read on my opponent, I'm just going to go ahead, play pretty straightforward. I'd probably only defend premium hands here. This is a spot where I would just very happily 4-bet and get in queens plus against more aggressive opponents. I'm probably getting in 10s plus and ace king very, very happily. If I don't have that much information against my opponent, I'm probably going to be folding all of my non-premium hands and calling in position with ace queen and above, and let's say probably 10s and above. Hand like 9s and 8s, I might just go ahead and fold if I don't have any information, which is definitely kind of tight. But, it's not that exploitable because my opponents don't know I'm doing that. And if my opponent thinks that I'm so tight that he can exploit me by getting me to fold 9s, well, that's a spot where then I begin 4-betting 9s instead and trying to get it all in pre-flop. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Poker is really a game about having good information and synthesizing it better than my opponents. So if I'm in a situation where I have no information and it's just kind of a blank playing field, I would just, I would totally go ahead and just make the conservative and usually best play. On table 2, a really, really tight player opened and I had King Jack offsuit. If that, if that opener was an aggressive player, I definitely would always defend King Jack. But when it's a really, really tight unknown player, I'm not going to have very many good reads. So on table 2, I flop Jin, obviously flopping the nuts. The problem with this is the board is just so absolutely crushed that it's very unlikely my opponent is going to put in that much money with a worse hand here. If my opponent is going to have jacks plus here, then obviously I'll be able to extract 2 or even 3 streets of value. If he's got a 10, all the money's going to go all in. But most of the time he's going to have like ace king, king queen. A lot of hands I actually want to check on the flop and let those hands improve so I can extract on the turn and river. So if he's got king queen, if I bet the flop, he probably might just fold. Sometimes he might call intending to make a move post flop, but that's going to be in the outliers. Very often, however, if I check and he checks and the turn comes a king or a queen, now he's going to find a lot of difficulty getting away from his hand on future streets. So sometimes you should check on the flop, right? You don't always want to be worried about balancing your air and your made hands when you are betting, sometimes you also want to go for the balancing act between your check calling ranges, your check raising ranges, and your check folding ranges on the flop. So this is a flop where when I check, it looks like I'm giving up quite often, and I often am because I'm putting my opponents on pocket pairs that are not going to fold. So because it looks like I'm going to check fold here a lot, I'm going to balance this range by occasionally checking. I would check a 10 here. Sometimes I check aces here. Hands that really don't worry about giving free overcards off. So go ahead and check. He checks back. Probably doesn't have that much. If he had a lot of air, he might just check back, see what I do. Very unfortunately, the king is a really good card because hopefully it improves him to a pair, but he just goes ahead and mucks. So that's a spot where, obviously it seems like a waste of a full house, but if your opponent doesn't really have anything, there's not that much you can do. So it is 11 minutes into 43 of this video, so that means I have a lot more footage to continue making videos from. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and close this up for the day. This is Alvin Lau, aka Citizenwind. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube feed if you enjoy this, and I'll be putting up all sorts of vids all the time. I'm going to be playing some 25 no limit, some 50 no limit. I'll play a little bit of 100 no limit for people who are interested. I think most of these videos are going to be for aimed towards beginners, so I don't want to put a lot of the intermediate stuff up yet, but I definitely will be doing that in the future. If you guys have any questions or comments, interpretive dances, compliments, fan poetry, I would love to absolutely hear them. Please send me a private message across YouTube, or you can go ahead and send me an email at citizenwindpoker@gmail.com, and hope you guys enjoyed the video.